Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of our podcast, The Dev Room, where we'll be taking you on a behind the scenes look at how we do engineering at Cosent. My name is Randike, and today I'm joined by two co founders, Deleepa and Rifhan. Welcome to the podcast. So, from what I've seen, there's, if I can categorize the AI adoption or usage of AI into three different levels. There are people who just say no to AI and just code manually, just refuse to use AI. Or there's people who click the autocomplete button basically. You go on VS Code and just tap. And then there's the full-on vibe coders of just you close your eyes and you just press enter. I sort of try to stick somewhere in between the last two, because usually if it's something that is predefined, something that's a common pattern, you can more or less go with a single prompt. And if it's something that's new or something that is much more nuanced, then writing the code and then auto-completing it is the best way to go. I'm a bit curious, how have you all been using AI for your projects? Let's start with Deleepa.
Okay. So I think I have about 50 something projects in my projects folder that kind of will tell you how I've been using AI. It's all just junkyard kind of projects. Every random idea I get, try to wipe code something out of it. So I think I agree with what you're saying. The middle path is where I think I have landed now. I've tried the full vibe coding path as well, and I've noticed that as the project gets a bit bigger or the number of features I have on it grows, I tend to kind of want to learn a little bit more about what's actually going into the code. So I've drifted from projects. I just completely start vibe coding by defining the tech stack, saying, okay, I want Vue.js, .NET, Postgres, something like that. I just describe the stack and say, here are my features, go build this. But then as the number of features grow and grow, what I'll do is I just want to study a little bit, like get into the details a little bit of how is this particular feature being really implemented in the code. So I think I like the middle part of what you're saying there.
That's interesting. But do you think that, you said you have 50 or so projects.
These are all just like half done.
Yeah. Do you think that after you start something with the AI, you might think it's a good idea at the start, and then after that, you sort of lose the enthusiasm to continue on. I felt that.
Yeah,
that's I don't know why that is, but Rifhan, do you have any idea how do you use it? Has this happened to you?
Yeah, for that specific question, of course, yeah, you do, because now you have a really powerful tool in your hand, and it's so cheap to generate code, and it's really hard to find the right problems to kind of code. So that's why you have so many projects. So you get an idea, you don't really validate and verify that idea.
Exactly.
With it's I would call it a 3am problem or something of that sorts, right? That's actually worth building something out of it. And then you just have this really powerful tool, and then you go and build out, and then sort of in the middle you figure out, no, there's something existing I can use, or no, I think doing it manually is better, or something like that. You kind of land somewhere. And to touch upon the first point in terms of both of you, how you use it, I more or less agree. Definitely, like most of us are sitting in that space, especially coming from an engineering background. And one thing that I loved is, or the workflow that I loved is plan and execute. So meticulously plan in the plan mode if it's, and then you have a solid plan, and then you can let the execution be on auto mode.
Okay.
So that kind of has worked really well for me.
But I also love these little rabbit holes you can go down. Like, for example, with all the events that are going on in the world right now, I started to put together it started off as just a vanilla kind of HTML, JS tool that would be able to scrape information from different websites and just put a little feed together for me. And as the weeks went by, what that turned into was me learning more about web scraping than putting that tool together. So my curiosity for how web scraping works, how how do you get through paywalls, how do you get through human verification walls, that sort of thing. I started going down that rabbit hole, and then solving that problem rather than the actual product thing itself. I think this might be the fact, like what you said, code is really cheap, so we can kind of explore these technology problems a little bit more. But then if you have a real 3 a.m. problem, then I think you would sit down and create a product out of it. Of course you can. I don't think I've got to that level yet. I've found this 3 a.m. problem that I want to do that. I keep tending to go down this technology kind of rabbit holes a little bit.
Yeah, but that unlock is actually real and very interesting. Because now you can learn anything and everything that you want. Even if it comes to, if you have a curiosity about how rockets work. Earlier it's about pulling out a lot of literature. Now you can start prompting and understanding first principles. But
I think, well, for me at least, this is actually a problem I have, because when I used to code and I didn't know as much stuff, I used to go and actually learn, and by coding, writing the code, it took a longer time to finish off a project. But I did learn a lot of nuance in how everything is put together. That is a bit lost now. Even though earlier, what you're saying, where you just go in and you stumble upon something and you learn it, that was done at a much more a smaller scale, a rudimentary scale, when you're actually writing the code. Now I feel like it's a bit more motivated. You have to go after it and ask questions. And I feel like that's a problem with uni kids coming in, and people who are new to the industry might face this sort of barrier where they haven't gone through that, learning the nuances, subtle nuances, and then trying to learn through vibe coding. I'm curious, do you have a take on that? What do you think that they should do, per se? Is there a specific way you should learn this sort of thing? Do you just go, like you said, just be as curious as possible, just to write like 50 projects, 100 projects, and then stumble upon different architectures or even web scraping concepts, whatever? Or do you think that they should focus more on building stuff on their own, as in without AI first, and then move on to actually polishing it, or move on to prompting AI to build stuff in a much more higher level?
I think you can do it in parallel, so you don't have to really not use AI and go and build it on your own, and then that's the more slower path, in my opinion. I feel like what just Deleepa explained before, how he built out something and then he suddenly learned about web scraping. That's the exact thinking you need. So you build something, but you need to understand how the fundamentals work. So you can still use AI to learn that. So you might vibe code it. Let's say you build an authentication and authorization feature, right? So today you can just ask AI to use MSAL library in JavaScript to build out, let's say, an authentication and authorization flow, right? Very simple. But if you don't, again, spend the time to understand how that flow works, how token exchange works, then you're losing out. That's why you're losing out, in my opinion. You use the tooling to build it fast, but also spend some time to understand how it has built and what are the fundamentals behind it.
Yeah, that's true. But I also think gradually the line of what are the basics might also be shifting over time. Like, for example, if you were a carpenter way back in the day, you needed to create your own hammer, create your own nails and stuff like that, right? But if you're a carpenter now, you just buy it off the shelf. You don't really care about creating your own hammer. And back in the day, the story might have been the best carpenter creates his own hammer, which is not the case today, right? You just buy it off the shelf, and it's your craft. Like, I mean, your output that you create at the end of it that we're looking at. So I think over time, what do we mean by the basics might be shifting. So we might not really care so much about. It's like this was another nice example that I heard on another podcast some time back. Was like sometimes we spend a lot of time optimizing the actual code we write. Like we might do something in a while loop or a for loop or something like that, and we might think, okay, doing a while loop here is more memory efficient, but then the compiler actually decides how the program is compiled down, and then what you write as a while loop, or what you might choose to, like I write it as a while loop, but you write a for loop. Once it's compiled, it's the same output that we're going to get. The binary that we get is just doing the same thing under the hood, because the compiler has made that decision for us, and all that time that we spent deciding which little thing that we should use was pointless. So like what is the basics, I think, might be shifting, like that line might be shifting. I don't know if that's the best example to take or not, but like, I mean, maybe we don't need to worry about the very low level stuff anymore. But I agree, sometimes maybe this is just because of the background that we have, that we tend to sit down and look at the code. Someone new coming into the industry might not be that interested in actually looking at the code, and that actually might be okay 3 to 4 years from now. Like, I mean, if you remember back in the day, we were so worried about spaghetti code and stuff like that, right? But maybe that's okay now. I don't know.
Because regeneration is cheaper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like just scrapping something and recreating it is so cheap. So might be that's okay. So
yeah. Just to add to that, it's about abstraction, right? So if you look at 10, 15 years back, when you write C code, you need to be worried about memory allocation.
Exactly.
And then when you had the garbage collector in, then you're no more worried about it. Like no one's worried about it. So it's a problem like that. But there is still, exactly, you need to define that line of what fundamentals are. So you shouldn't be like fully into vibe coding and not knowing how things are built, but at least you need to know some of those fundamentals.
Okay. I think basically the components of how certain components talk to each other, like you said before, like if it's a token exchange auth mechanism that you have, make sure you don't have token leakage. You should be able to at least tell your LLM tool, make sure there's no token leakage here or something like that, and you're not putting some sort of client secret on the front end of the browser or something. Like that sort of thing doesn't happen. So I think it might be easier for us to judge, but then again, like you are someone that's coming new to the industry, might find it harder. So fundamentals are important. I'm not saying no to that, but
I think one way to think about it, in my opinion, is anything that's generated and that you can read, you need to have an understanding about it. You don't need to know the details, but at least you will need to have an understanding about it. For example, garbage collection, we don't see how that mechanism works.
Exactly.
Right? That's abstracted out. So until certain things are abstracted out, until you see it in your diffs, I think you need to know about it, have an understanding about it at least. Because if something goes south, which can happen with you running out of your context window, things like that, right? So then you need to be able to jump in and fix it, especially when it comes to writing production code.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is I've actually heard this analogy elsewhere also, but AI sort of sits akin to how the compiler sits in between machine code, ones and zeros, and assembly, and then also what we write in this code, normal code. With that being given, okay, let's say now we are abstracting out a lot of this work to an AI. Okay, so you're basically automating, let's say, 90% of what a user, dev does, anyone who's using AI. I'm curious, there's the remaining 10%. Okay, the remaining 10%, does it become more important? Should you have a more, a better understanding of what's going on in order to operate the 10%? I have a feeling that that is the case, because AI might generate slop, and you have to know when to correct it, and it's very deceptive in the way it sounds so confident in what they're doing. Not just for just normal text, but even code. It might look good, but it might be overcooking things or undercooking things. We have no idea unless you have a proper understanding of what's going on underneath. Yeah. So with that being said, I think because we spoke about how we've used it. How do you see the people at Cosent? How do you see the adoption at Cosent? Have you seen anything interesting that people are doing? Anything specific, Rifhan?
Yeah, I think using AI on an individual level and adoption in an organization is two things. Because just because you have the AI infrastructure in place in terms of tooling, and just because people are using it on a day-to-day basis, activity doesn't signal adoption. That's what I feel like. So you need to have a much more structured approach there. So if you look at what we've done late last year, we sat together and said, no, we need to start adopting, right? So the entire adoption notion, kicked off really like towards the end of last year when Cloud Code really started kicking off. People started using it and so on, right?
With 4.6 maybe.
Yeah, with 4.6, exactly. That's where everyone saw the change coming in. So we decided, everyone should have the tooling. That's the first step. Until now, what we've gone so far is with a bottom-up approach. So everyone's given the tooling. We have some rituals that we run on a week-to-week basis. On a Friday evening, everyone gets together. There's one Scott that comes in every week and presents one change that they've done with AI, right? So that's one approach that we've seen. And also, on the other hand, with having the tooling is also not just enough. The person who's orchestrating it should have really strong fundamentals, because just having the tool doesn't translate to business outcomes. And what we're looking at is business outcomes, because that's how we measure, right? So yeah, that is of course a challenge that we have right now, and we're trying different approaches to solve it.
Yeah, I think from what I have seen at an individual level, almost everyone, because one other thing that we do is we provide access to the tooling, right? So that was one of the key decisions we made during the time period that Rifhan said. We all sat down and decided the wave is coming, what are we going to do? So one of the key decisions we made at that time is get everyone access to at least one tool. So everyone in the company has at least access to one coding agent that they can go with. So everyone at an individual level is doing something. They are at least prompting. I like to think of just plain prompting as brute forcing a little bit. So just plain prompting at least through tasks. So people are doing that for sure. But what we are also looking at is how can we get much larger unlocks. And like an analogy I like to use is that imagine you have 5 developers in your team. Each person spends on average 4 hours on a task, and you've got your full agents skill setup going in your own machine, and you're playing around with multiple agents. You've got an orchestration layer and everything, but everything that you're doing is just for yourself. So all 5 devs are very good at this, and what you'll see is that devs that used to spend 4 hours on a task, now that's come down to 2. All 5 devs in your team are just doing stuff now just 2 hours, doing stuff in 2 hours. But then when you look at it at an entire team perspective, you've gone from 4 hours to 2 hours. That's it. It's not a huge unlock. So each person has got more productive, but then it's all kind of like a parallel sort of thing. Everyone's just like your entire system is just 2 hours more productive. That's all. So how do we take it further than that is, I think, the discussions that we're having now. So at Cosent, I think at an individual level, we've done really well, but we are pushing towards the next step now.
Okay. Do you think that AI is ready to be, like, actually just coding agents are ready to be actually used as agents, like fully autonomous? You have an orchestration layer. Say it's me and I'm coding something, and all I do is just tell my 50 henchmen to go and get the task done. Okay, and a lot of this is very abstracted away. You don't see a lot of the details because, again, if you go into all the details, you're not really gaining much. You spend time reviewing everything. Do you think that AI is ready for that? Or?
I think it is, because at least for basic tasks, I think it is. It is because this is again one of the little experiments that I've run. We took so what I did was I had kind of like a discover agent, a design agent, and a implementation sort of agent. And then what the discover one would do is just kind of question me on what I wanted to build, and if the requirement wasn't clear, it would just keep building it out. And then what I used to connect the agents together was a markdown file at each stage. So output from one agent becomes the input for the next one, right? So the the discover agent would take me through a series of questions. If the requirement wasn't clear, really clarify it out, and then create a prd.md file that would then pass on to the design. The design agent was connected to Stitch through MCP, and then it would create a design for me, wait for my sign off on the design, and then it would pass the thing onto the task onto the next agent, which is the feature builder sort of agent. And then the feature builder would connect back to Stitch, pull down the HTML prototypes, and then start building. So I think for very rudimentary level stuff where I'm just working on my own, the coding agents are 100% capable of doing it. I've seen proof of that for myself. But then again, that's for me. Yeah. How do I make this work at a team level where you have 30 people in a team and this entire thing is happening across an entire team? That's a much bigger challenge, I think. But yeah.
And also depends on the context of the project. If it's a greenfield or brownfield one, depends on how good your context layer is that you've shared across the team, if you have shared it, and the tools and the skills that you've shared. It all comes down to that. And also one important
brownfield ones are really tough. So brownfield is basically existing projects, existing code bases, existing design systems in Figma or wherever it is. So those ones are much harder to work with.
Because they're natively not built to support AI agents.
Yeah.
And one important point you brought out is when you mentioned discovery, implementation, you mentioned the entire value stream of software delivery, right? So AI adoption is not just in the coding part where you generate code. It should be adapted across the entire value stream. That's where you will see reasonable outcomes for the business, because just if you generate code which is very cheap to generate fast, and if your validation and verification layer is slow, then your ultimate outcome is net negative or net the same.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so today I was just reading in the morning, and I was reading an article. I spoke to Rifhan about this before we started, but they were talking about the 8 levels of AI adoption for like an individual, at an individual level. Number 1 was just as a chatbot. Just go ahead and just ChatGPT. Then you have the which one was it after the chatbot? It's Copilot. We call it Copilot. Number 2, they have their own names.
Okay.
So Copilot was just, it has context of the files that you're working on. It's just basically literally Copilot. It's it's in your docs or your browser or whatever. Number 3 is you have agents. They're not control of your file system, but access to your file system, and they can manipulate files and whatnot. After that, you have I think it was workflows. You have your agents build workflows for you. There's multiple steps that an agent can go through and finish tasks autonomously. And then you have this autopilot. They call it autopilot. Autopilot is basically just you have stuff like Lovable. You don't do anything. You just say, okay, it's just pure vibe coding. You just say, okay, build me a calorie tracker app, it's done. Okay, you don't have a lot of control. After that, it was multi-agents. Okay, you have control of the multi-agents, but you specify what exactly you have to do. After that, you have, before that, you have assistants. Assistants will be OpenClaw and Hermes or whatever, where they behave essentially like a ghost assistant. Then is the multi-assistant basically. And then after that, you have your orchestration. So for a company like Cosent, for developers in their teams, what do you think? I honestly, in my opinion, I don't think the orchestration layer really works that well. because you have a lot of fully autonomous agents. You don't really have, I don't know if you've used a Paperclip or Multica or these tools. So they're basically tools that you can describe a whole persona. It's like multiple open clause, just saying, okay. They have access to tools, they have their own instructions and prompts and stuff. They use that, and so you can build, basically Paperclip will let you build a whole company. You have your CTO, you have your marketing guy, you have all that, and you just say, do this, and it tries to do it. I don't think that sort of approach really works for, obviously for dev. There's a lot more nuance, especially when there are problems that are not in the training data. So if you remember my 8 stages, where do you think you would like to see our devs at?
To be very honest, I cannot remember the 8 stages you went through.
Okay.
I'm surprised you can't remember those 8 of a thing you read in the morning, but I think roughly I know what you're talking about. I think I can't say that I would like to see our devs at a particular stage, because I think as you adopt these tools where you end up, I think you should try and experiment with all of those things that you spoke about, right? Like experiment with all of those things and figure out what works for you. And as an individual, like I said, I have heard of Paperclip, but not the other tool. But I've never used Paperclip. But what I did when I set up my agents and my orchestration was I ended up fine-tuning the agents myself, and I ended up fine-tuning how they behave and everything myself, and I did not really rely on on something that was open source, because like creating these things are very easy. You can just use an LLM itself to create the agents, right? So or the skills or whatever that it is that you want to use, even the memory in between agents, you can just use the LLM itself to create it. So I created it myself, and maybe that's why it worked for me. I don't know, and I fine-tuned it myself. So maybe that's because of the approach I took. But I think what I would prefer to see is how teams behave rather than an individual. And as an individual, go as far as you can. I mean, good for you. But play around the entire spectrum that you spoke about. But as a team, what I would like to see is a team being able to kind of take everything that they are doing and try to build agentic systems around all the work that they do. And humans become the people that steer the agents than the people that are actually doing the work, than being the executors. That's where I would like to see the teams operating at. That's where I landed.
Yeah, and for me, translating those activities to outcomes that you can see, because that's ultimately what matters. You know, how much of activity you have in terms of using AI, workflows, orchestration, multiple agent, whatnot. If it doesn't translate to outcomes that our customers can see, then it won't mean anything for them. So
you're essentially saying don't overcook it, just try to get it done. Don't overcomplicate things. And
not really. So how do I put it? So find the right balance that would give us the best outcome.
Okay.
Because it's like don't sit down and start building out your entire agent orchestration system in 2 weeks and then think about feature development, or don't do that. That I think is overkill. Go step by step, figure out what works for your team, because at Cosent, and I think at any kind of company, like product company, service company, I think it's all about the teams. How do teams get together to work to deliver this outcome? Because everything has to be outcome focused, and everything has to have a good business outcome. Otherwise, if there's no commercial value for what we're doing, then there's no point of anything that we do, right? Exactly. So it's all about value delivery. That's the other driving point I think that we need to have here is value delivery. How do you enhance your value delivery, not as an individual but as a team? Because even this was true back in the day as well. You had super coders, like really people that were super techie kind of people, but then they were not delivering as much value as an entire team could do. And how do you take that particular set of skills and scale it out for an entire team? And I think in the AI world, it's the same thing again, all over again. I mean, it's the same thing.
Because when you have such a powerful tool, it's easy to get carried away and build a very complex system for 10 users in the market, which doesn't make sense. So something like that. So that's one. And then also it's very true that fundamental stand, like value, focusing on value, focusing on how do you run your system in production, like production-minded engineering. Then also focusing on discovery. How do you get feedback and react to those feedback and build features that actually users will love and cherish, and in turn that makes money for our clients.
Okay, so just to close off the whole thing, what I've heard so far is, if you start from the top where we started, I think there's a lot of discovery that needs to happen at a personal level and also within your team. So to do that, what I've heard, to summarize, I think we have to just experiment a lot, stumble across different new things, and new things are always appearing. We got Fable today. So you have to just tinker around, see what works, sometimes overcook it, and then bring it back. Try not to, get too bogged down in the details without experimenting. It's another thing I heard. And focus on delivering value.
I think that sums it up kind of nicely.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other closing remarks?
Yeah, not really. But I think you summed it up really nicely there. But yeah, I would say be curious. I think this is an amazing time for us as engineers, or like even non-engineers, to just be curious, play around with stuff, go down certain rabbit holes, and figure things out. So be as curious as you can. Like just maximize on that. Maybe token max on
token max on that.
Token max
not on anything else.
Curiosity, but also focus on value delivery, I would say.
This is
as a team.
This is not only for devs, I would say, right?
Yeah, it's not just for devs.
So
I get scolded all the time because I mean at Cosent our teams are multifunctional, right? Like I mean, and sometimes I focus too much on the devs, and then the QAs and designers are not very happy with it. So yes, it's not just devs. It's fine.
So if everyone is feeling the pressure to just learn AI and use AI and adapt to the times, if there are any SCs concerned about them getting replaced, if the model is smart enough to do software engineering and see the subtle nuances of building something very complicated apart from just the syntax, I think anyone else, whether you're a lawyer or an accountant or whatever, should pay attention and try to adapt as well. So
that's true.
It's true. And the fundamentals become ever so important in a space like that.
Survivability depends on adaptability, I think. So it's something we tell our teams all the time. So if you want to survive, the people that survive are the ones that adapt the best. So you have to adapt.
Okay, thank you for that insightful conversation. I think there's a lot more that we can talk about, and I'm pretty sure we'll have a lot more episodes to talk about this. So we'll see you in the next one.